well, and I think this would have been a bigger hit for Vitello if the outcome had been different last night. But the question is, who's your favorite Vol coach of the past 25 years? And I gave you some chances, give you some options. You're not going to see the little orange lines move, but the numbers will change. Barnes, Fulmer, with a goose egg, Heupel, Pearl, the leader, Bruce Pearl, unbelievable. Ahead of Pat Summitt, Tony Vitello, 10%. The love for this town's love for Bruce Pearl, a guy who burned them, it's amazing to me. But go ahead, keep showing me how wrong I am. That QR code there, you use it with your smartphone, just click it, and tell us which of those 6 coaches was your favorite over the last 25 years. And we'll have a little segment on Vitello's popularity coming up next, as a matter of fact. But go ahead, vote right there, or you can go to sportsource.tv, click on the polls, and vote there. We appreciate you playing and showing me how goofy I am with what I think is going to happen and it not happening. All right, Vince, quickly. We talked about Drew Beam in that last segment. He'll be on the mound today. Tell me about the matchup with Texas A&M's guys.
Well, certainly you need Drew Beam from last game where he was fantastic. And the big thing with Drew Beam is the second or third time through the order. And he was much better at that last time. And adjusting to understanding what the opponent is adjusting to. He struggled his previous 5 starts before that. But if you get that Drew Beam from the North Carolina game, Tennessee is in great shape, and they need that with as many guys as they used out of the pen last night. Now, in terms of the matchup for A&M, they're in a tough spot. The pitching advantage is Tennessee's favor in this game. There's no doubt. The last guy that started besides their Lampkin, who is their number 2, and they're saving him, at least what we hear, for Game 3. The last pitcher to start other than that is Tanner Jones, and he started against Grambling in the very first NCAA tournament game. But he's been up and down, 6.33 earned run average. Weston Moss is another option. What they're going to do is they're going to start one guy, kind of like a Stamos, to get him through one time through the order, and then they bring in Cortez in his comfort zone. He's the power arm that can throw 100. That's what you got to do. You got to get to their starter, their first guy through, and then see how it plays out after that.
Keys for Tennessee to win this game. They have to win it to keep the national championship hopes alive. What are the keys?
Don't fall behind in the count the way that they did yesterday. I think is a big portion of it. And so I think for Tennessee, if they're going to throw that many first pitch strikes, swing, man. Put the ball in play. And I think that's something that you have to do is be a little bit more aggressive at the plate. They've been measured. It's worked for them well. You're at a different level right now taking on Texas A&M.
Can't go 2 for 13 runners in scoring position, which is part of that. Can't strike out 17 times. And I do not think that Moore and Tiers are going to go 0 for 10 with 5 strikeouts. I expect them to be much more productive.
Moore hasn't had an 0 for 5 days since March, so that's not likely to happen again.
Yeah, get off to a good start. If Tennessee's able to put pressure with Beam on the mound on Texas A&M, that's, I think, a huge advantage for the Vols. They're going to have opportunities. Guys are going to get on base. You got to send them home. You got to score.
I mean, not to be Mr. Obvious, but obviously you want to cut back on the errors too. I mean, you don't want to give them extra at bats. You certainly don't want to give them runs. You got to clean that up. And for the most part, they have in this tournament. It's been 2 games where it really bit them. It's the 2 games they lost. One interesting thing, my view of this series, is it changed? Yeah, I mean, your back's against the wall, but if you told me I could have any team in the country in a 0-1 hole and they got to win their next 2 games, I would probably take Tennessee. So I'm not really panicking over this. I don't think fans should be panicked over this. I mean, I may be eating crow at 6 o'clock tonight when the game ends, since it's now they can't end the game in 4 hours. But to me, I'm not really panicked about this. I think Tennessee's the better team. I thought Texas A&M had their ace last night. You weren't ready for it. My guess is the next 2 games are going to look like Tennessee again.
We just
we'll
watched
play
this.
The odds.
We just watched this in the SEC tournament, right? Like Tennessee just lost game 1, worked their way all the way through the SEC tournament. So why would you think now Tennessee can't win 2 games when then they had to win? How many games was it, Vince, in the SEC tournament they had to get through? 4. I mean, yeah. So you can win 2, and you beat this exact Texas A&M team in an elimination game as well once you'd already taken 1 loss. So this is absolutely doable.
And you haven't lost a 3-game series since Alabama, which was what? Was that the first SEC series?
First SEC series, yeah. Well, and 3 times they've lost the first game of a series and come back and won. Georgia, Auburn, and Kentucky. 2 of those are awfully good. So it's happened before. In a way, this it would be indicative of the kind of season Tennessee's had. Yeah. It's not the 22-year where they're just rolling people, where they've had some challenges, but they've overcome them. I'm fairly calm too. Like this, baseball is day to day. It's not like football where if your run defense struggles, well, you're going to stink with run defense all year.
Right,
It's every day is different, different pitchers, different dynamics.
Well, let me ask you though, do you think if Tennessee, if it's close, is everybody available? Like, do you have, if you're down 1 run, do you run Seacrest out there and say, we'll figure Monday out if we
I
have
think
to?
you have to.
Yeah.
You have
to
to
stay alive, right?
Yeah.
Another
No,
positive.
your bullpen's good enough without having to run him out there.
Well, yeah, they can.
What I'm getting at is I'm
Everyone's
doing whatever
on
it
the-
takes to
every-
win
you
today, and
have
I'll
to
worry
survive,
about
right?
I'll do whatever
Yeah.
it takes today. I'll worry about Monday.
Yeah.
I agree with that, but your bullpen is
Right.
good enough to where you don't have to
You
use
shouldn't have to
Seacrest.
use it.
Correct.
They didn't pitch Nate Snead. And it was a
Yes.
positive that Tennessee did some things offensively late in that game, and they forced their closer, Aschenbach, to have to pitch 46 pitches. He may not be available for game 2. That is a positive. So Tennessee needs to get the early start, like Josh mentioned, and then avoid having them to maybe try to run Aschenbach back, for a short stint or something.
One quick thing, and I was going to drop it, but I'm putting it back in here. Pressure busts pipes. All right, this is the most pressure-filled game that the Vols have been in ever. So, does that give them a little case of the yips? I would normally think they're used to this kind of thing. I'm not worried about it, but it is the World Series Finals. They know it is the World Series Finals. They can talk about, it's just another game, all they want. They know the importance of this. So I do wonder if there's going to be any kind of difference in their mental makeup. And Tony Vitello said after the game, we weren't going to dive into this because none of us were clear what he meant by it. But after the game, he talked about it was a little more emotional yesterday when things didn't go right. I don't think he meant they were weeping. I think maybe they were just more frustrated.
That's what I would go with.
But
Yeah.
it does make you wonder, okay, is that a sign of they know this is the World Series Finals?
It could be, but I also think that they've got enough veterans on this team. They've been there before. A lot of these guys were on the World Series team a year ago. I don't think that would creep in. I do, and I have seen them bounce back from some not so good performances. You mentioned the Vanderbilt loss in the start of the SEC tournament. Florida State,
Florida
they ran
State,
to come
yeah.
back and win that game. So I think they'll be okay from that perspective.
I do get a little concerned in seeing the difference. One thing that I thought was a good thing for this Tennessee team is that everything was business. This is just business. It's a business trip. They handled everything like business. We stay on schedule with our pitchers. We're not going to deviate from what we do because of the moment and overreact to it. For him to say last night on ESPN, Tony Vitello, that they revved up into the red too far and they had to dial it back down, especially when I see how calm Texas A&M was, how businesslike Texas A&M was, that's a little bit concerning.
All right, we got to catch a break. And thanks for continuing to vote. You've shifted that pretty quickly. Pat Summitt now in the lead. Tony Vitello, the second most popular coach at Tennessee over the last 25 years. More popular than Pearl, that's about right. More popular than Barnes, more popular than Heupel. And Fulmer has a vote. Fulmer more popular than Heupel. There you go. All right, when we come back, where would a national title put Tony Vitello in the pantheon of fans' favorite coaches? There we go. Come on back on the Sports Source.